Good evening. I want to call the meeting of the Roseburg School District Budget Committee to order. And would like to remind everyone that if you want to speak, the meeting's being recorded and it is also available by Zoom, right? So we need to push the button in front of you on the microphone until you get the green dot and then participate that way. And then feel free to turn it off if when you're done. With that, the first thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Let's see, are we going to do the pledge? I didn't see that on there. Bernice, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to
Oh, Chair Kubik, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, and my apologies to the group that I had to miss the last meeting. Thank you very much for those who were able to pinch hit for me, and members of the committee. Hopefully you were able to receive the budget message. I wanted to talk just for a few minutes. I'll be brief tonight about kind of this idea of where we're going. And I thought I'd just share a couple of slides with you real quick. Let's do this real fast. So the question of the reason for the topic has been, some people have asked this, and this isn't just a post-COVID question. But I want to talk a little bit about, as a school district, where we're going. And I'm reminded of W. Edwards Deming oftentimes, that reminds us that every system is perfectly aligned to get the results it gets. And what we are intentionally thinking about as a school district and have been wrestling with, from the work at the board level and developing a strategic plan and operating that, to the school level and the kid level and the system level, is to build a system that gets the results we want. And I want to talk a little bit about what this equation essentially has been for our school district over the last couple of years. Really, it's relatively simple. But what we have focused on is essentially an equation that, if it's a theory of action, essentially, that if you increase opportunities and access for kids, what that means to me is, regardless of zip code, you could participate in things. If you increase kids' ability to have more choice in their learning, in other words, we tend to be most interested in engage in things we're interested in. And if you really increase rigor intentionally, I think three things happen. We actually have evidence that this is happening in our school district. Kids are more engaged. There's deeper and more relevant learning in classrooms and out of classrooms, and academic achievement will improve. This is an equation our school district has really designed to try to increase opportunities for kids, to make sure that kids have an ability to choose which opportunities of those really they feel like they're most passionate about. Of course, there are things we need all kids to know how to do. And also, how do we create more rigorous opportunities that lead to deeper learning for kids? And hopefully what you hear tonight, hopefully what you can hear about our investments, are really in this frame. They really should fit in this equation. I want you to think about that equation as you hear about whether it's Measure 98 investments, student investment account investments, what we're doing to be able to have the kind of academic outcomes we want for kiddos. So where we're going is this, and I want you to, as budget committee members, think through the Deming quote, that are we designing a system to get the outcomes we want? These are the things we want. I want kids engaged. I want relevant learning where kids feel like I belong here and what I'm doing matters, and that we see increased academic achievement across our school district. And with that, Chair Kubik, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Very positive, and Dylan is a very good objective, goal, strategy, and direction for our system. So, the next item on the agenda is a report about student investment account. So,
thank you very much, Chair Kubik. All right, wanted to share with you our investments for the student investment account for the 22-23 school year. Just our planned investments, our preliminary estimate for next year is almost 4.5 million that we will have to utilize for the 22-23 school year. All of our investments need to fall into one of these categories: class size, well-rounded education, instructional time, and health and safety. And some of them fall into multiple categories at the same time. We had to identify the strategies that we, is it not working? Oh, thank you. As a district, we have to write an SIA plan. And in that plan, we have to identify our strategies. The first strategy is to create a culture of safety and respect for all students and adults that supports the social, emotional, and physical well-being of students and adults that is critical to academic and professional success. So these are our health and safety investments with our student investment account funds. We are investing in our social emotional learning coordinator, who we have this year, Mindy Endicott, and she supports all of our schools in social emotional learning. She meets with teams. She also provides all of our professional development to our administrators. She's a very valuable asset to our school district. We are also funding 2 school psychologists and 10 skills trainers. So that puts a skills trainer in each of our elementary schools and both of our middle schools to help provide support for our students. This is a big jump. Before we had 4 skills trainers, and now we're able to fund 10 skills trainers to support our students. Our second strategy is to ensure instructional materials and tasks are appropriately challenging, supportive for all of our students. This is our well-rounded education categories. We're very excited this school year that we were able to hire our 4 elementary STEAM teachers. We will continue with them next year. They get to go to every single one of our elementary schools. I don't know if you've seen our STEAM van. It's now wrapped with the STEAM team wrap. They get to provide science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics lessons to our students in our elementary schools. Every other week, they are in a school. So they go to all 8 of our elementary schools, and it has been a resounding success. So we will continue with our STEAM teachers, and we are purchasing the materials for those, all of those activities. And we are funding, this year we were able to give $450 to each teacher in the school district to purchase books for their classroom libraries, and we will be doing that next year as well. Thank you, Tiffany, for all of that ordering, to really help foster the love of reading in our classrooms. So we've been purchasing books like crazy, but it's been super exciting for our students. Our third strategy is to establish systems and interventions to identify and remove barriers to graduation for all of our students. This is where class size and well-rounded education come into play. This is our biggest investment. Special education teachers, special education IAs. We now have elementary music teachers in all 8 of our elementary schools. We were able to add 4 elementary teachers to reduce class sizes, 6 middle school teachers really to reduce class sizes and also expand elective opportunities for our students. The 2 middle school TOSAs that give principals the opportunity to spend more time observing in classrooms, but also help support students. A health and wellness teacher at the high school. And we also purchased the Juvenile Justice Online program, which is a program for students that instead of being moved to expulsion or being cited for making mistakes, they go through this online justice program, and it's basically restitution. They learn lessons, they have to write letters to try and keep them from being removed from our schools and being able to continue to access learning. Our 4th strategy is to ensure educators and families have the tools to support academic success for every student. We have purchased the ERLA formative reading assessment for elementary. This coming school year, it will be in all of our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade classrooms. And it will be in 2 3rd through 5th grade classrooms. So next year will be our soft start for 3 through 5. And this again is fostering a love of reading, but also with this, you can identify the strengths and needs of every single student, provide them the education, the help that they need. And then it also is great information for families, so they know where their children are strong and where their children need assistance at home, and gives them resources to read and practice at home as well. The big one is our before after school programs, electives, and extracurricular activities, and offsetting our student fees. So we are to increase opportunities for our students. We're no longer charging fees for them to participate in electives, athletics, extracurricular activities, that we've opened up those opportunities for all of our students. So cost is no longer a barrier for them. And then we're expanding our before and after school programs and electives. Cheryl's helping spearhead the expansion of robotics to our elementary schools for next year. So we have lots of fun things that'll be happening for our kiddos. So that is, and then we have our summer learning opportunities this year. And if remember last year, I shared with you that there was funding allocated for summer learning. This year, the legislature provided $200 million to support summer credit earning and enrichment opportunities in 2021. So in response to that, this year they appropriated another additional $150 million. $100 million of those funds come to school districts. The remaining $50 million are going to community-based organizations, and that is through grants through the ESD. For us, our high school allocation is there for you, almost $300,000. Our K-8 allocation, a little over $650,000. This will be for enrichment and academic opportunities K-12 this summer. We will have it at Winchester Green, Fullerton Ford, Hillcrest, Joseph Lane, and RHS. Sites will be combined. So Winchester and Eastwood students will go to Winchester, Green and Sunny Slope will go to Green. Melrose, Fullerton will go to Fullerton 4, and Fir Grove will be at Hillcrest. All of our middle schools will be at Joe Lane. And transportation and meals are provided for all of our students, even students who don't normally get transportation during the school year. We provide them transportation in order to access summer learning. And that is all I have. Any questions? That's okay.
The dollar amount for this year compared to are we spending close one because the state's a little less. We're spending
It's the allocation is about half of what we had last year. But last year for districts, it was a lot of money to spend in a very short period of time. This funding we have until October 15th. We utilize the majority of it now. And it's, salaries, materials for the students, all of that.
One thing I'll mention, it might be worth mentioning in kudos to several people. So interestingly, because what happened was we kind of anticipated this might happen. So about nearly half of the school districts in Oregon didn't apply for or really have summer school. And in defense, it's not a criticism, but the money came late. They had a hard time finding staff who would do it. We saw a wild swing across the state and what people were paid to do it. That was also interesting because there was more money than ever. We hadn't seen that before, but kudos to several people in this room who got that up and moving for our kids. We had 1,200 kids participate last year. I can't remember how many credits at the high school. Well over 100 credits were earned. It was fantastic. It was really great to get kids back. But what happened in this allocation, the reason I bring it up is the legislature looked at how much money was used in 2021, and that's what they appropriated. So about half the money was used, half the money then was allocated in 2022. So really, I think a lot of people in this room that got this up and moving. We also did partner last year and had childcare offerings. We're not sure. We were working kind of side by side with the Boys and Girls Club to see if they'd maybe offer that for our families, but they're running through the ESD process. So that's why the money was half. I talked to the Secretary of State or Treasurer a couple times on this, and he reminded me that was what happened. So,
are you going to? Is this program going to look similar to last year's for our students, where it's in blocks and families can sign up for? How's it going to be spent?
At elementary, it's 5 weeks this year. We didn't put it into blocks. Parents can pick 1 week. They can pick 2 weeks, they can pick 5 weeks, they can pick whichever weeks they want their children to attend. Middle school is 2 blocks, so a 3-week block and a 2-week block. So parents can choose one or the other. And I believe you did that at RHS as well. Yes, same.
one thing that did change in the essentially it's a non-competitive grant. You still have to apply. It's really off ADM. But one thing that did shift quite a bit is last year was about just getting kids back into school. It was really about like connections and care for kids and opportunities. And it shifted a little bit at the secondary level toward making sure there's a focus on academics and rigor and credit, either retrieval or extension. And so that is a little different than it was last year. Last year was really like, how do we get kids in here? What can we offer? Everything from there was podcasting to sports and athletics and just opportunities for kids to be involved. They did narrow that band and at the secondary level to be more focused on academics.
Dean, there's a good balance between those that need assistance and those that are really excited about learning, that want to be in the summer classroom.
Yeah, we just put out the signups 2 days ago, and we already have a large number of students who have signed up. And last year it was kids that were excited to come to school and just they wanted to continue coming. And then we have our children who need some extra academic help. So it was a balance.
And then going back to strategy one, where we see the $4.some million, that money comes from where?
Oh, the SIA plan?
Yeah.
That's from the student success account. So that's the CAT tax.
Okay. And then, so you, in that first slide, I think you had the skills instructors.
Skills trainers.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's in a day during a skills trainers? What happens during a skills trainers day?
It's really, it's a typical skills trainers day. So they may be working with small groups of students, helping them with behavior skills or coping skills, or they do check in, check out. So if a student is having difficulty in school and they have a behavior plan, They check in with someone in the morning and it's, you're going to have a great day today. Here's the things you're going to be focusing on. And then at the end of the day, they check out with that same person to check, how did you do today? You know, that's their trusted person to go to during the day. If a child is having difficulty in class, the skills trainer may go bring them out, take them for a walk, help them with calming down. And then other times they're just in classrooms providing supports. They may run a reading group. It just depends on the needs of that particular building.
Yeah, and I'll jump in here. This sounds like a good Netflix original, like skills trainer. Okay. Got an idea. Really, the idea of this position is to really try to focus some attention on the antecedents to behaviors, right? So really it's not intended, although there can be kind of this management piece that happens when kids are dysregulated. The intent is to really find out what the kind of the functional behavior is, like what's leading to that, kind of get to that root cause analysis. I would just mention too, it's looping back in with families to see how families are addressing this, to make sure we're consistent, kind of what the needs of the kid is, not just so we can make it through the day and the kid can make it through the day, but to make sure we can have a better day tomorrow. So we have kids that are struggling with anxiety, for example, or it might be someone who's struggling with depression, or it might be someone who lost a parent or is nervous about fill the blank in. So it's really trying to figure those things out, but also build the skills to say, how do we provide some support so that they can access school? And sometimes in the day-to-day, if we just pick on elementary for a minute and you've got your kids or secondary teacher, it's like, how do you have time to figure that out? That's where the skills trainers can come in and provide that support.
And the advantage we have of having our social emotional learning coordinator is now she is providing training and overseeing our child development specialists or CDSs, our skills trainers. So she provides them professional development on how to provide these supports for students. So now it's a cohesive program. Still working through it, but we've had it for this past year and we'll continue. You're welcome.
And the student investment account is funded by the legislature, and we expect that to continue annually. The summer learning grant was more of an emergency response by the legislature to try to, and we don't know if that's going to continue.
Correct. So last year it was so successful, the legislature appropriated funds again this year. I know the conversation has been they want to continue to fund that, but I don't know. We haven't received confirmation after this year.
And it's not really leading in the direction of having a fourth quarter of class and year-round schools. It's the summer programs are clearly different to supply something that kids otherwise would need.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a legislative appropriation in 2021. And again, was a legislative appropriation, but legislative appropriations have different intents depending. We have varying opinions on our legislature about what the intent is. But I do know in some conversations with some legislators, there was an interest in finding out, is this a good return on investment? Are these dollars a good return on investment in terms of expanding opportunities and learning for families? And we heard from a number of families that asked the question about, will we be doing this long-term because of whether it's retrieving or accelerating credits or just having the opportunity to be connected. So we shall see, but we actually, I will say, a couple of people in this room too took advantage of sharing data with the legislature on the return in our community. We shared how many credits were earned, what the experience looked like, and that I think helped advocate at the state level for these funds to come back this year, which was good.
Those are included within the 250 grant funds. Is that correct? Do you have a page number
Actually,
or the recap?
it's the Fund 251,
251.
and that is, starts on page, no,
The special projects fund recap, which is approximately page
257.
the discussion is greatly valued and informational and really tells us what's happening. But I want to make sure we know where that's at.
So the Fund 251, I'm sorry, Ron, is just the student investment account, and summer learning is included in. Is summer learning is
Sorry.
separate, is 250.
You're right.
So that'll be in the next section.
Yes, so that's, Fund 250 is gonna be before, so the summer learning will be, beginning with, that's gonna be in the 250 fund, and so that's gonna be slightly before.
On page,
Thank you.
there you go.
We, all of us around this table and online knew we had to do something like this. You know, last year was so important during the summer to do that program, and it's gonna be more than last year and this year. It's gonna be, I'm not a professional by any means, but I could see this needing this in this district and statewide for worldwide, United States wide, for years to come. So we've had many of our kids that have really suffered during the COVID. And we've got to do everything possible that we can do to get them on track.
Right, in the area of high school success grant or Measure 98, it was approved by the voters several years ago. And at that point, they allocated $800 per student in the high school level for this fund. But it depends on the amount of money legislature has, how much is given to us. And so the money has fluctuated a bit, but has always been helpful. The money is set aside for, you can see on page 271, in three main areas. One is dropout prevention. The second area is career and technical education. The third area is college level educational opportunities. And we must focus our activities in those three areas and meet the eligibility requirements, which are below that in terms of collaboration time for teachers, reducing chronic absenteeism, equitable assignment to advanced courses, on-time graduation, and partnerships. And those are always our goal. Those three things are always what we want to put our energy into. And then we do meet those eligibility requirements as well. So we sat down together and wrote some goals from the funds that we're going to focus on in the next year. We know the importance of all students successfully transitioning from middle school to high school. When students in their 9th grade year on track, they're much more likely to graduate. So we put quite a bit of energy into that first year. So that transition from middle school to high school is important. We want our students to have a wide variety of CTE pathways to pursue. We know that when students are focused on CTE courses, career and technical courses, vocational courses, they have over a 92% graduation rate within our school. Therefore, we need more of those if that's helping the kids graduate. We also want students to have a variety of dual credit and AP courses, so those advanced courses for students to earn college credit or to take advanced courses and as Jared mentioned earlier, really increase that rigor in our courses. We want all students to leave 9th grade on track for graduation. And we want our graduation rates to increase through implementation of target supports. Obviously COVID has impacted our students, and we noticed when we removed some of our 9th grade supports, our on-time graduation dropped dramatically. So the year that we really were not in school, in the traditional way. We were at 94% of our students on track for graduation, and without those supports in the school setting, we dropped to the low 70s. So that shows how important what we do is for kids in the building. And we're working very diligently to bring those rates back up. But through this work, we also met the all-time high graduation rate of 89%, which we're very proud of. So in the activities that we have, I could talk for a long time. I'm going to just highlight a few that we brought on because there's so much within these funds that we use the money for. We do have smaller learning communities. So our students in 9th and 10th grade have groups of teachers who surround themselves around the students. They meet monthly to look at data on the students. They call students in and work with them. They call families and work with them. Kind of that warm handoff in essence between 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. These teachers value that time. And during the rise of Omicron, we were not able to get enough subs to release that, and our teachers were chomping at the bit trying to get back to that. We extended it through this program to 10th grade this year, which we hadn't had in the past because of the impact of COVID and the supports that our students need. You heard about the summer program. We have a robust summer program at the high school. Some is from the summer learning money, and also some is from High School Success. We offer a transition course for our incoming 8th graders who need additional support. We offer credit retrieval specifically for our 9th graders who did not earn credit in English and math. And we offer credit retrieval for students who are in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. When I first got to the high school, we charged students $50 each to do credit retrieval, which was quite a barrier for some of our students. Now it's free, and it is just, it's kind of a neat program. It feels good at the high school in the summer when you have summer enrichment happening, when you have ESY there, we have driving happening, athletic camps, credit retrieval. It's a hustling little place with all those things happening. Let's see, we also have increased our dual credit opportunities, and we've increased some of our career technical education courses. So we did add auto a few years ago. We added the nursing program the previous year. We've added an advanced health science class this year, all through monies from High School Success. We also are focused on increasing our internships and partnerships. As it says in here, but we also know that when we get students out into the real world and using the skills they've gained, the transition from high school to the workforce is increased. Those are some of the big highlights that we have. This fund has allowed us to do the things that we know that work, and has allowed us to increase our on track graduation, or on track for 9th grade, as well as increase our graduation rate. We have some work to do after going through COVID, but the programs that we have, we know make a difference, and we'll continue focusing on that.
Do we have partnerships with Umpqua Community College,
Yes, absolutely.
such as?
Well, that's where dual credits come from. So Ready
Okay.
121, all of our welding, drafting, CTE courses, early childhood, all of that comes through community college.
Okay.
I have a question. Without this funding, would kids be paying for those college credits? Because I know like our students don't pay for AP tests, and I know that they're getting those college credits at no charge
Right.
from, I guess, and you also have some with
SOU. We also have
SOU
a
as well.
partnership with Southern Oregon. Yes, and we do pay for that through this funds.
That's awesome.
Yep.
It's great that they can get those college credits at no cost.
And the AP test as well. If we were charging $60 per student previously, can be a barrier to families. So
So is it still 800 per student? that
I
you're
think it is.
receiving?
Do they have your allocation in here? I think we did meet that this year. It's every year we kind of wait to see what will be allocated for us. One year we had 600. I think it's 800 this year.
Where's that decided? Or
The budget people tell Cheryl what we get.
Oh.
We receive an allocation from ODE, so we haven't received the preliminary allocation yet.
Thank you.
Questions for Jill? Yes, please.
Maybe for Robert, how many of these additional positions that Jill talked about and that we saw in the, IAs and in the SIA money, How many of those additional positions are currently not filled?
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question.
All of our SIA positions are filled. SIA funded positions are filled, and all of our high school success positions are filled as well.
Michelle, do you, now we talked just briefly with you about the psychologists. Are those filled now? We have found two?
We had those positions filled. We have one more coming on at the beginning of next year, but we have had a little bit of turnover. So we have 2 positions we need to fill.
That we need to fill.
Yes,
We'll get
they're
the word
filled
out.
right now, but we'll need to fill, but they'll be vacant for next year. So we are in the process of filling those positions.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'll start with one of the biggest challenges that we are having in our general fund, and that is our student enrollment. We, like many other districts across the state, have noticed a decline in enrollment. Right now, we're about 350 students down from what we've had in past years at a funding of about $9,000 per student. Normally, that would equate into over $3 million cut for next year. About 3 things have happened. So we are not in a cut position. We have not laid off staff. We are moving ahead. The first thing is that because not only because most school districts in Oregon have experienced this decrease in enrollment. If you think of our state funding as a pie and every student is a piece of that pie, with so many students out of the mix in homeschool or private school, each slice of that pie is now just a little bit bigger. So we are experiencing an increase in per student funding because it's the same amount of funding spread over fewer students. That and the fact that we are in the second year of a biennium and we are funded at 49% in the first year of the biennium and 51%, that's helped a bit as well, also increasing that per student funding. Then the third and almost the biggest, I would say, thing that has happened that has helped us out is that we did a PERS bonding. And we and 17 other school districts in the state pooled our funds and pulled together to sell bonds jointly. Bonds were sold at 2.47%, which is amazing. And you can look at the savings from a PERS bonding several different ways. And I tried to just summarize it for you. The district had done bondings before, and we are in the latter few years of paying off those bonds. We did an issue in 2002, an issue in 2004, a refinance in 2011, and now we did an issue here in 2021. So I tried to just really briefly summarize it because I find that at some point when I talk too much about PERS, people's eyes kind of glaze over just a little bit. So we would be paying, had the district never bonded any of its PERS debt. Bonding helps us to pay a lower interest rate than PERS would charge us on the debt. We would be paying close to 29.23% of gross salary. So literally, if a person made $100,000, we would be paying almost 30% of that, almost $30,000 into PERS on behalf of that person. So if you take that 29.23 that we would have paid, and by the way, we have about a $39 million subject salary for PERS for the employer rate. If you take that plus the employer rate that we're paying now, that means that we would be paying about $12 million minus what we are paying. So about $9.5 million more than what we are going to be paying. If you take that and you decrease it by the debt service for all the offerings that have not been fully paid off, that's a debt service of about $5.8 million. So we are saving from all the different PERS bonding issuances about $3.7 million. That is what the district will save by having done these actions. You don't quite see that as the savings in this year's because of course, as we did past bondings, our employer's rate decreased and we've enjoyed that benefit over the last several years. That's just kind of a overhead, big 30,000 foot level view of it. If you take what the most recent, what we spent, our budget for next year for PERS debt service, in the current year, we budgeted 2.9 million. That's what we'd be sending to PERS. We have budgeted in this budget for next year to send $327,000 to PERS, and that is a $2.6 million savings. Then you could take and offset that with a 1.7 million increased debt service payment, and you can do the math from there. So we're experiencing about over $900,000 direct reduction of expenditure in this budget net. So that has also helped us with our student decline. But with all the SIA and high school success, we're going to bring all those students back into our brick and mortar schools. It's going to be so cool that everybody will want to be here. So.
Can I ask an enrollment question?
Yes.
Is there a particular, I feel like it's not the high school that we've lost any at. I feel like she's bursting at the seams. Is there a particular level that we've seen student enrollment drop at?
It was particularly at the elementary level that we saw this at the beginning of the pandemic. It's flattened to be really kind of a toss up between and a combination of the middle and the elementary level right now. The high school has not, and this is actually our high school really, I mean, we've actually gained some kids over the pandemic, the high school, and actually across the country, high school, it's been the one area that high school enrollment really hasn't fluctuated dramatically across many high schools, partly because that's where you can get credits. So we did see more of the parents want to teach that. There's no transcript. We got to get to college, and we did see more of the community work at the elementary level. So hopefully that helps. We have seen when the mask mandate was lifted, we saw certainly more students enroll back into the brick and mortar schools. We do anticipate that we will see more students. We had several parents tell us, you know what, this is actually going okay for us right now. And we anticipate we'll see an uptick in enrollment beginning of next year. And online registration is happening right now. So we're keeping a close eye on what that looks like right now. I will also say kudos to Cheryl and kudos to the board for the last bond issuance. When you think about, 12 to 14%, it should kind of look like a credit card, if you will. It's like not anything like a credit card, but if you looked at that, the obligation you had at 14%, and you could settle on a 2.49% true interest cost with $36 million, about $1 million a year over the next 20 years. That's really significant. And if you've been watching the news, several school districts in the state have been, and really across the country, are in a riffing right now. They're in a reduction of force right now because of student enrollment being down. So when we talk about opportunities for kids and the things we're doing, it's actually really cool that we're not just keeping things the same with reduction of kids, actually adding to that for more opportunities. And we just could not get there as a school district without a budget committee and a board. Cheryl, her team, really taking a look to say, I think now is the time, let's go. So that really is pretty significant.
I had a question about the PERS then. We are hiring quite a few more people. So will our PERS obligation then go up significantly? We're having less students, more, hiring more positions. How is that going to keep us okay financially?
Well, right now we are paying 0% outside the 6% pickup, but for OpCert members, so if they're new to the PERS system or new since 2003, they are part of the OpCert system, so we're actually paying no employer rate on them right now. We will still continue to pay the 6% pickup, and we still will charge out what we need to charge out to still pay the debt service. And actually, when we have grants that hire people, that helps us spread the charge and actually, you can say, lowers the general fund obligation to pay that debt. Because we're charging out PERS on our grant funded people.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
I had a question, a little follow-up on that. Do you think the surprises that we've had in the past over the next 5 to 10 years, would our PERS obligations be more predictable? Is the system fixed or repaired or patched so that we don't have these big ups and downs, no matter what state agency or local agency you might have?
I'm hoping a much smarter than I person has the answer to that question. I would have been more confident for level years ahead, except the recent turmoil we are in with interest rates low and inflation high. So I think that does add some volatility back to our future PERS rates. PERS is funded quite a bit by the income they make
Sure.
on interest.
Then the other thing, with the $9,000 per student that you mentioned, does that include the $800?
It does not. That is a separate funding source.
Okay, so we're up to $9,800, sort of.
But remember too, that we have several sources of funding, including other federal funds, Title I, Title II, the SIA funds, and those are all outside the basic school support
Okay.
formula.
And the basic school support is the 9,000.
Correct.
Okay.
No, but I can send out my notes to all of you after the meeting. The PERS rates and things are not specifically in here. The debt service amounts are in the 3,000 fund, so you can go take a look at those. They're not separated out by year of debt issuance. They are lumped together in principal and interest. But it's PERS and it's really cool stuff.
But I just wanted to make sure, and back to the budget document.
And yes, and when the 300 funds, yes. The PERS obligation bonds are specifically Fund 302. And, but it's within the debt service group, the 300s. When you see a number that contains, we call it the object, it's a little 3-digit number, 211 is our employer PERS rate. So as you go through, not for the current year because we sold the bonds after this budget year had started, but if you look back to 2019-20, you'll see the difference wherever you see that 211 within the benefit accounts, you'll see that difference in that budget. You got a good sample for us?
If you go to page 15. We'll just look at the elementary, K-5 elementary instruction, function 1111. On page 15 is a good example. Cheryl mentioned the objects. So your 100 objects are your salary. Go down to your 211 PERS employer rate. You can see in 1920, the actual amount that we paid in employer PERS was $931,024. In 2021, we paid $948,186. In the current year, we budgeted $689,662 because our rates had dropped from the previous biennium. You'll see in 22-23, we're only budgeting $59,721. And so that you can look at every function.
But if you still want my notes, just email me later and I'll send them to you. Can I have you turn to page 11, please? I'm going to switch us to an overview on our expenditures. got some really nice charts created by Venice on page 11. And you can see here, and this is just general fund. So it's not, doesn't include all the grant funds, the federal funds. And you can see salaries here out of our total budget of about $67 million. We have salaries. You can see that's 32 million. That's about 49% of our general fund budget is spent on direct salaries to people. Payroll costs, that's our benefits. That's our PERS costs, the PERS pickup, Social Security, workers' comp. Payroll costs are about 26% of our budget. If you add those together, salary and benefits is about 75% of our budget. It actually might kind of seem low when you compare with other districts, but remember, we contract out our transportation services, and that's a large chunk of money. One other change that we've made in this budget document is that up until recently, our substitute costs were a salary, a 100, and a benefit, the 200s. Now we contract out our substitute services, so we charge them under a 300 object because we're not paying the salary and benefits directly. So that's also moved it off the payroll, if you will. So, so if you count those together, I mean, if we did not contract out those services, it would be well over 80% that we spend on direct people that provide services to kids. On that page, you can look and see the yellow part of the pie chart, $10 million in purchased services. I think that's 16% of our general fund budget. And I thought I would just outline some of the larger amounts that we spend there. Our substitutes that we're going to spend, this almost looks like a bit much, about $1 million in sub costs, both licensed and classified. We do have a program for the hearing and vision impaired that we pay. That's for students that need a brailleist or an interpreter, and we spend about $400,000 there. Phoenix School, we do their charter school payments, and that's right around $2 million for the budget for next year. That's included in that purchased services amount. And our transportation, student transportation, both athletic and home to school, is about 4.2 million. So it'd be kind of nice to get a little bit of a summary breakdown of what $10 million in purchase services is. So our supplies amount and our other objects, which is mostly our liability insurance, those are both less than 1% of our budget. And our other uses of funds, our transfers and our contingency amount, that's about 6%. Our transfers consist of, I think we have a really good summary page for our transfers, do we not? Hopefully. Our transfers, we actually transfer funds out to our major maintenance fund. We transfer them out to a curriculum replacement fund. They transfer them out to a 185. Thank you. You can see it here, technology, curriculum, capital projects, and that is all to fund major expenditures within those funds. So when Michelle needs to save up funds to do a large curriculum adoption, that comes from her transfer fund. Same with technology and major maintenance. The other thing that you see in this fund is our vehicle replacement fund. We started that a few years ago because we knew we needed to replace some vehicles in the district. That has doubled. The budget for this has doubled for next year. We have actually some maintenance vehicles where, you know, doors are about to fall off and can no longer be replaced. So we need to try to make sure we can purchase a new vehicle every year. We've also added funds to start replacing our driver's ed cars. And in fact, in this year, we used our vehicle replacement fund to order, hopefully we'll get it soon, several months ago, driver's ed car. So that's the major change there.
We don't charge fees for driver's ed, or do we?
We do charge fees for driver's ed, but we haven't raised the fees for that. We're about $170 per student that we charge for driver's ed, and UCC charges $225.
Okay.
If a student has financial difficulty, there is some, there's a reduced rate for that. And again, what we've done there is try to be cost control.
And how many students do we have participating in the program, would you estimate?
Oh, lots.
200?
I think it fills every
which is,
And it is not a credit bearing course, and something we offer for our community through our schools, but it's not necessarily a school program, if that makes sense.
okay, but how many would you estimate participate in the program?
I would say a couple hundred. I can
Okay,
find the number
that's
that's
fine.
accurate, but
That's fine.
there's kids always, it fills, and it's summertime's very
Mhm.
full. Every day after school, you see people going out with kids driving.
And we actually did have a set aside fund for driver's ed, so we can gauge whether it is being self-supporting. And for several years, it did begin to build up an ending fund balance, and we were going to use that to buy a new car. But then when COVID hit, we couldn't teach driver's ed, at least not in the same capacity, one child per car when we could get it going again. So the fund went in the negative. And so we weren't able to afford to buy a car from the fund, but we've purchased it here through our vehicle replacement fund. So that's that general fund, non-fee support. And also our ESSER funds. We're using our ESSER funds to pull that fund out of the red and back into an even fund balance.
Are those contracted positions, or who teaches driver's ed?
We have a mix of current employees. They teach both a classroom portion and a behind the wheel portion.
Okay.
And we have some retired teachers that come back and also do driver's ed for us, mostly behind the wheel.
Saints, that's who teaches that class. Saints.
Saints.
They come by my house all the time.
Oh, my stars.
Very, very, very good patient people who teach that class.
I noticed this parking lot fund.
Yes.
Looks like
Yes.
that's something brand new.
It is something brand new, and thank you for bringing that up. So we do also charge fees to park in our parking lot. And some of those fees are used for the supplies to run the parking lot, to like sell the tickets and do those types of things. The fees collected have been put into the general fund, historically speaking, but the parking lot's a little expensive to maintain. So we've pulled out anticipated revenue from that, and we're putting it into that separate fund. And so next time we need to restripe the parking lot at the mere cost of $21,000, we have some money set aside for that.
That should be an art project, the art class.
We're in the CTE class.
Exactly.
Well, the parking lot is getting to be.
That's all right, colorful.
The parking lot is as old as the last bond issue. It must be 20
Correct.
years old.
Yes,
And it's gonna cost a whole lot more than, well, never mind.
that is correct.
But that's a good step to be.
It's a
saving
good
money for a
step,
project.
and we could also use those funds for things like crack sealing. This way it puts it not in competition with all the rest of our major maintenance projects that we do with our maintenance transfer. It sets it aside specifically for that, so focuses it.
Because all the other schools have parking lots too that get resurfaced out of the general fund, right?
Restriped
Okay.
sometimes.
My life has been cursed by parking lots lately, so never mind.
So what is the committee's pleasure? Would you like to go into further detail about smaller changes within the general fund? I've kind of given you an overview. I can ask if people have questions that perhaps they didn't have a chance to send in advance, things they noticed as they looked through the budget document.
What's an opportunity to see if there are questions, or if there's any portion of the general fund budget that you would like Cheryl to.
I was asked one question that I can talk about while you guys are considering. I was asked about the difference between extended school year and summer learning. An extended school year is paid for within the general fund, and it is continuing like it always has, and that's our summer opportunity for those students whose IEP says that they need to continue and have a longer year, an extended school year, and that's very separate from our summer learning. Our extended school year kids, depending on how often or how long our summer learning is, could participate in our summer learning. But that program, extended school year, of course, is continuing. And then we're adding our summer learning.
If you go back a year ago when you proposed last year's budget versus now proposing next year's budget, what have you used for energy costs to put those in the budgets, from, natural gas to gasoline to diesel to all those types of things, and, athletic budgets at the high school, and, the cost of transportation must be exorbitant.
As far as straight utilities, Dennis, do you feel comfortable talking about what assumptions you do the budget for utilities?
So I look at each, I can tell you the object number 325, object, just like the 211. If you see the 325, that is for electricity. 326, water and sewer, etc. And I look at those individually across the district. Those are going to be in the function 2542, which is on page 153, starts on page 153. This budget document
contract out with the bus company, do they have a cost escalation provision, or are we locked into a certain price and they just absorb?
We are locked into a 3% increase for them. There is not a fuel accelerator clause.
Okay.
We did step outside that a bit, but that was for raising beginning bus driver rates this year. So we actually gave them next year's 3% increase early. We gave that to them this year, partway through the year. And hopefully it's been successful in attracting more bus drivers. Our total transportation costs have been very hard to project for next year because we were down so many bus drivers this year. We're dramatically under budget, which is a bit tricky because part of our school support funding formula is we get a 70% reimbursement. So if we think we're going to spend $3 million and get 70% of that through basic school support, but we only spend $2 million. Now our funding on the revenue side is less. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to try to predict. So we did increase our overall budget a bit for transportation for next year. It may not look like that because we're under budget for this year. Did that answer the transportation portion? Another thing that's probably noteworthy along those lines is our nutrition services, which is contracted. Generally, it's a state formula. It's state driven. It's the Consumer Price Index, urban at-home eaters, Portland area, that ends up being, around 3% for the last few years. Sometimes it's a little less. We now know that it's going to be 6.9%. So our food costs directly to Sodexo are going to go up 6.9%, the per meal cost. The employees in that program are the district employees with the exception of Kyle. So we're aware of that and working on it.
Just a reminder, it's a contractual obligation within our agreement with them that CPI drives that yearly. So those are costs we have discussed and have planned for.
Or good.
Not really a question, it's a comment. As we are going through temperature changes, I don't want to use the word climate change because it's a negative adding word. But if the temperature was 44 degrees last year and it's 42 degrees this year, it'll make a difference in your electricity costs. Number two, when we start replacing these HVAC units with something more efficient, your per unit cost is going to decrease. So that you spend X number of dollars with a unit that's 30 years old, you won't have to spend that many dollars with a unit that is more efficient because the new equipment comes with its inherent efficiency added to it. So when she starts guessing power costs, electricity costs, she really is throwing, what we preachers like to say, the dice.
I don't think probably not many of our systems are only 30 years old. Go more like 60 years old, 80.
Well, yeah, but what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at is that I can speak personally. I replaced a heater air conditioning unit at my own home, and then the first 12 months I saved $6,000 with
Yeah.
electricity costs.
A question about the food. We have not been charging students for meals under that was through a federal grant. And is that going away?
They call it the community eligibility provision. It's at the federal level. It is not going away. But next year, dependent upon supply chain issues, which is impacting our food service program right now, you can't get all the food that you need to get. But the plan is now to return to having the variety bar offerings. So we've been, putting what fruit we can in a cup and putting it on the, and having people take that, having students take that. We very much plan and want to go back to the choices. So you get your main entree and your milk at the regular line, and then you go and select your own fruits and vegetables off the variety bar. So the only thing that will put a kink in that is if we can't get fresh fruits and vegetables.
But students, we're gonna still be able to cover meals for all students.
Yes.
Which is really, really. It's so wonderful. Right now, this year too. We all can eat, every kid can eat for free breakfast.
The amount of kids that are eating breakfast is even more this year than it has been in the past, which it has been free, but lunch is crazy full of kids eating. So it's neat to see. And I appreciate that service for our kids.
been on the board, we've been part of discussions about a lot of these issues all the way through. I'm relatively satisfied with what we've done here. But the point of the budget committee is partly to have the non-board members act as watchdogs and look at it and offer an opinion about whether we want to come back after digging into it more or not. So.
Okay, thank you, Charles. That's good. Well, let me go over to.
I don't get many calls. Maybe that's and I don't always know why that is. There's a caveat to this. I'll explain in a second, but we try to let the community know when we do the independent audit that we have a track record of having that highest rating in terms of what that is. And these budgets are complex and it's 300 and something pages and people aren't sure what to look at. But overall, it hasn't been really an area of concern. One of the things I do hear though, and this has been more recently, and it may be because of about the bond and some questions. I have had an uptick in questions about, tell me about what's happened with maintenance in the building. What's happened with ESSER funds, which are federal funds that came through the CARES Act. People are trying to just get a sense of what money do you have and have you spent it wisely? And I think in our community, that is a value people have of making sure we're getting a good, we're making good on the money we have, we're having a good investment, but it hasn't been a trend I've seen. I think the bond has had more people ask questions about our budget recently. And I saw that a little bit in 2020, but if we look between those bookends of those 2 years, it's really relatively quiet relative to the budget.
And we don't see a lot of people here.
I have a question with the tax rate, $1.85 per thousand. When the last bond issue sunset, what were we paying on that per thousand?
Cheryl, I was trying to think of you have the numbers there. I could pull them up here.
So I'll answer that, but I'll answer it in in parts. When the bond was first issued, the rate was in the 80 some cents per thousand.
Okay.
Over time, as our area grew and property taxes increased, although a lot of that is factored into the bond, most of the years in the 60 some cents, it went down.
Okay.
And the very last year, which of course was a half year of debt service payment, it wasn't a full year because it expired in December, didn't go through June, and it was down to just a little less than 50 cents per thousand.
Okay.
But there is a fluctuation sometimes in those, depending on what projects are starting, and as that bond rate comes down, more people move in. Yep. And just as reminders, you probably know that obligation has been completely paid within that 20 years.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was spelled out as much as it could have been. What we paid those last 20 years versus it's not $1.85 per thousand increase per se versus what we've been paying. It's more like $1 and some odd cents.
In our last bond levy, we did attempt to articulate that. And we'd say the average of what we've been paying over time is 68 cents per thousand. So this would, the increase would be this. And we found that it really actually confused
Did it?
people.
Okay.
But we tried.
Yeah, okay.
People saying. This is back 2020, not to go back to that, but we had people, for example, that would call and say, I can't afford to double my taxes. As in all of your taxes. And so it would just, the message was confusing, but taxes are confusing. And so, but yeah, so, but the 2020 bond projects are complete. We have the benefit of being in those buildings and seeing those buildings. And it's great for the community to say, hey, that happened. It got done on time, on budget, and is paid for. So.
Oh, excuse me. Now do I have to go back and repeat all
No,
that?
no.
You've done a great job. But I would, I'm very satisfied with where we are.
Okay.
So,
With the non-board member budget committee members, it sounds like we're in a pretty good position of understanding the document, what's before us, heard about what's in it. I want to get a consensus from the board members. Charles advised. Can I just go, Rod, are you comfortable with?
I was just wondering, you have a couple of board member or committee members that are missing?
Right, we do.
Not. No, but as far as committee, you're on your
Yeah.
budget committee.
With the citizen members. of the
Yes,
budget
yeah.
committee. I think
Have you
we-
heard from them or
From John,
any thoughts from them?
I have not.
Tiffany reaches out multiple times, lets everyone know. You guys probably received those reminders as well. Last time we had one of them indicate that he was coming and he didn't show. So, we can reach out to them again and offer to bring them a budget document for them to peruse and ask questions of.
Oh, so we don't know if they've even seen them. Okay.
So who is on Zoom tonight?
We have Director Bishop, who's on our regular school board. We have Director Shercliffe, who's on our regular school board. We have and we have Sasha Amok, who is one of our instructors at Roseburg High School.
So going on around.
My comments are complimentary. I have analyzed this budget. I didn't see any mathematical errors. I didn't see any deviation from generally accepted accounting principle. My concept that this budget is a workable budget because of the vision that the people who are going to carry it out shared with the numbered people to put the numbers together. When a principal or a staff person at one school says, I would like to do the following to accomplish these goals where we're going. we do in the school district has to be more important than not cracking over numbers. If we don't set up a vision to succeed, we will set up a vision to fail. And what I have seen my 6 years on the board, we're doing everything we can, whatever it takes for the students. And for that, I'm proud to be part of the group. I would pass it.
Our two board members that we have on Zoom, can they communicate to us if they would be prepared to act on the budget this evening?
I am. I thoroughly enjoyed myself today. Nothing else I'd rather do.
Is Andrew there? Well, we have a strong majority of the budget committee participating here. We are short a couple of people, but they had the opportunity. I have seen a good number of school district budgets, as Vernus has. And this is well prepared. I think it's sound. I think it's designed, as you stated, for success for our community, but success for our children. So in my terms, success for our future. And so I would like to ask, I entertain a motion to approve the budget. So
Chairman Keith, I would make a motion to approve the 2022, 2023 proposed budget as presented in the amount of $284,693,813.39. And furthermore, I would move to approve the required property tax rate in the amount of $4.03, rounded down, necessary to balance the 2022, 2023 general fund budget and a debt service of $8,866,929.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second. There's a motion and a second to adopt the budget, approve the proposed budget. Is there any discussion? Any other discussion? I've had the discussion in advance. Well, then we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of approval of the 2022-23 budget and pursuant to the motion by Tom, please raise your hand.
I vote yes.
Thank you very much. I saw that hand. Approved. And are there any opposed? Opposed? It is approved and carry forward for public review by the school board. Is there any other business? Did you want to move to adjourn?
I second it.
There's a motion and a second.